Jack Harper looked out the viewport as the transport ship approached Nexus Station. The massive structure gleamed against the backdrop of stars, its rotating rings and extended docking arms making it look like a giant metal flower blooming in space. "First time off-world?" asked the pilot. "First time this far from home," Jack replied. He rubbed his calloused hands together, a habit from 20 years as a firefighter in Portland. At 42, he wasn't the youngest human selected for the exchange program, but his experience made him valuable. The ship docked with a gentle bump. Jack grabbed his duffel bag and joined the line of passengers moving toward the exit. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth's, and he bounced a little with each step. The docking bay was a riot of colors, sounds, and smells. Aliens of at least 7 different species moved about their business. Some had too many limbs, others too few. Some floated rather than walked. Jack had studied the common species during his 3 months of training, but seeing them in person was different. A green-skinned official with 4 arms checked his credentials. "Firefighter Harper, human, Earth," she said, her translator making her words clear despite her lack of a mouth. "Welcome to Nexus Station. Your quarters are in Sector 7, Human Adaptation Zone. Your orientation begins in 3 hours." Jack thanked her and followed the directions on his handheld device. The corridors were wide and tall to accommodate species of various sizes. He passed shops selling items he couldn't identify and restaurants serving foods in unusual colors. His quarters were small but comfortable. The room adjusted its temperature as he entered, and a welcome message appeared on the wall screen. He unpacked quickly, placing a photo of his old fire crew on the bedside table. After a quick shower, Jack put on his new uniform. Dark blue with the Nexus Emergency Services insignia and a small Earth flag on the shoulder. He felt proud wearing it. The orientation took place in a large amphitheater. About 30 newcomers from various worlds sat in specially designed seats. The station's commander, a tall insect-like being named Exal, welcomed them. Nexus Station is home to over 10,000 beings from 17 Alliance species, Tel said. Your roles here are not just jobs but symbols of cooperation between our worlds. Later, Jack toured the emergency services section with his new supervisor, Commander Zithlak. The tall, crystalline Valaxian moved with precise steps, the light reflecting off his transparent skin. Human firefighting techniques are interesting, Zithlak said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a compliment. Your species relies heavily on instinct and physical intervention. We prefer predictive algorithms and automated systems. Jack nodded politely. We have those too, but sometimes you need boots on the ground. Zithlak's crystal features arranged themselves into what might have been a frown. On this station, there is rarely a need to put oneself at unnecessary risk. Our systems handle most incidents before they become dangerous. The tour ended at the equipment bay, which held tools Jack recognized alongside devices he couldn't begin to understand. A squid-like alien was working on what looked like a hovering water tank. This is Krell, our engineering specialist, Zithlak said. Krell's tentacles waved in a friendly gesture. A human. I studied your planet's fire suppression history. Fascinating how you manage with such primitive tools for so long. We make do with what we have, Jack said with a smile. That night, Jack sat in the station's observation lounge, watching the stars. A human woman sat down beside him. You look like you could use a friendly face, she said. I'm Lily Rodriguez, Diplomatic Courts. Jack Harper, firefighter, just trying to find my footing. Lily smiled. It gets easier. The aliens seem strange at first, but they're just people doing their jobs like us. Jack nodded. Back home, I knew exactly what I was doing. Here, I feel like a rookie again. That's why they wanted experienced people, Lily said. You know enough to learn what's different without being set in your ways. They need what we bring to the table. Jack wasn't sure about that, but as he looked out at the vast expanse of space, he felt a sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, He would face them as he always had, with courage, skill, and the adaptability that made humans unique in this vast, strange universe. 2 weeks passed, and Jack still felt like an outsider. The alien firefighters were polite but distant. During training exercises, they worked with smooth, practiced movements while Jack relied on his instincts and experience. "Harper, you must follow the protocol," Commander Zithflack said after a drill. "Your method was effective but non-standard." Jack nodded. "Sorry, Commander. On Earth, we adapt to the situation." "This is not Earth," Zithflack replied. His crystalline body glinted under the lights. Unpredictable behavior endangers the team. Later, in the station's cafeteria, Jack sat with Lily. The room was divided by species, each section with different atmospheric conditions and food types. "Rough day?" Lily asked, noticing Jack's frown. "Zithflack thinks I'm a caveman with a water bucket," Jack said. "Maybe he's right. Everyone here uses advanced tech, and I'm still thinking like I'm back in Portland." Lily stirred her coffee. "That's exactly why humans are valuable here. We think differently. The Alliance species are advanced, but they're rigid. They follow rules and protocols for everything." A commotion broke out at a nearby table. A small furry alien had knocked over a container of what looked like glowing blue jelly. The substance began to smoke when it touched the metal floor. 2 Valaxian crew members backed away immediately. A protocol alarm sounded, and the standard evacuation message played over the speakers. Jack moved toward the spill instead of away. He grabbed a neutralizing agent from a wall-mounted emergency kit and sprayed it on the spreading blue substance. The smoke stopped, and the jelly solidified. The room fell silent. The station's automated cleanup system activated, removing the neutralized material. "The protocol is to evacuate and wait for the hazmat team," Zithflack said, approaching Jack. "You took an unnecessary risk." "It was a small spill," Jack replied. "Basic chemical reaction. The neutralizer handled it fine." "That is not the point," Zithflack insisted. "Rules exist for safety." Krell slid over on several tentacles. Actually, Jack's response was optimal. The evacuation would have taken 3 minutes. In that time, the substance could have damaged the floor and released toxic fumes. Zithflack's crystal face rearranged into what Jack now recognized as annoyance. "We will discuss this during tomorrow's briefing," he said before walking away. Krell's skin changed to a friendly purple. "Humans are fascinating. You see a problem and move toward it, not away from it." Jack shrugged. "That's just firefighting basics. Assess the threat, use the right tools, contain the situation. Most species here prefer to let systems handle problems," Krell explained. "Direct intervention is considered primitive or dangerous." That evening, Jack was called to the security office. Security Chief Diane Powell, another human, wanted to talk to him. "I heard about the cafeteria incident," she said. "Good job." "Thanks, but Zithflack doesn't think so." Diane leaned back in her chair. "The aliens find us confusing. We run into burning buildings while they build robots to do it. They can't understand why we take physical risks." Jack thought about this. It's not about being brave. It's about being there, seeing what's happening, making decisions based on what's in front of you. "Exactly," Diane said. "And that makes them nervous. But it's also why we're here." As Jack left the security office, he passed the station's main control room. A group of alien technicians were monitoring systems. Everything was orderly, efficient, and distant from the actual operations they controlled. Jack wondered what would happen if something went wrong that their protocols didn't cover. The thought bothered him as he made his way back to his quarters. The station felt too clean, too controlled. In his experience, emergencies never played by the rules. That night, as the station lights dimmed to simulate evening, Jack noticed a slight flicker. Probably nothing, he thought, but he made a mental note to check the electrical systems in his sector tomorrow. Sometimes small problems were warnings of bigger ones to come. That was something every firefighter on Earth knew well. Jack woke to a soft beeping sound. The station's morning cycle had begun, lights gradually brightening to simulate dawn. He checked his tablet and found his work schedule for the day. Equipment inspection in the morning, training drill in the afternoon. After a quick breakfast, Jack headed to Sector 9, where several small malfunctions had been reported. Krell joined him, carrying a toolkit with his many tentacles. "Good morning, Jack," Krell said, his voice bubbling through his translator. "Did you sleep well?" "Not really," Jack admitted. "I kept thinking about that power flicker yesterday." Krell's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. "The system logs show no abnormalities." "Sometimes you can't trust the logs," Jack said. "My old chief used to say that buildings talk to you if you listen. This station is just a big building." They reached an access panel where the environmental controls had been acting strangely. The panel showed green status lights, but when Jack placed his hand on the wall nearby, he felt unusual vibrations. "Something's not right," he said. "The airflow is irregular." Krell checked his scanner. "The readings are within acceptable parameters." Jack shook his head. "Parameters don't tell the whole story." He opened the panel and found scorch marks on one of the circuits. "Look at this. The system isn't reporting it, but something's causing power surges." Krell examined the damage. "Interesting. I'll replace the circuit, but we should report this." They found similar issues in 2 other panels. Each time, the monitoring systems showed normal operation despite clear evidence of damage. By lunchtime, Jack was concerned enough to visit Diane in the security office. 3 panels with the same kind of damage, he explained, showing her the images he'd taken. "And I've noticed power fluctuations in sectors 7 and 9. Diane frowned. "The main systems aren't showing any problems." "That's what worries me," Jack said. "Either the monitoring system is failing, or something is hiding from it." "That's not possible," Diane said, but she didn't sound convinced. "The station's systems are designed with multiple redundancies. On Earth, I've seen electrical fires hide in walls for days before breaking out. This feels similar, but I can't put my finger on why." Diane tapped her screen. "I'll order a manual inspection of all systems in those sectors, but I need more than a feeling to take this higher up." "Fair enough," Jack said. "I'll keep looking." That afternoon, during the training drill, Jack noticed Commander Zithlak moving stiffly, even for a crystalline being. "Is everything okay, Commander?" Jack asked during a break. "I am functioning adequately," Zithlak replied. "However, I have detected unusual energy patterns in this sector. The source is elusive." Jack perked up. "What kind of patterns?" "Brief surges, followed by drops. Too small for concern, but the pattern is irregular." Zithlak hesitated. "It reminds me of stories from my homeworld about energy parasites that feed on power systems. Could something like that be on the station?" "Highly improbable. Such creatures are ancient and rare. The Alliance has not encountered one in centuries." Zithlak's crystal features shifted. "I should not have mentioned it. It is merely a scientific curiosity." After the drill, Jack met Lily for dinner. The diplomat looked tired. "Rough day?" Jack asked. "Strange day," Lily corrected. "We've been getting odd readings from the new diplomatic wing, and some delegates claim they've seen lights moving in empty corridors." Jack told her about the damaged panels and Zithlak's comment. "Energy parasites." Lily looked skeptical. "Sounds like old space tales." "Maybe," Jack agreed, "but something's happening, and the station's systems aren't catching it." As they spoke, the lights dimmed briefly. A moment later, an announcement came over the speakers. "Attention all personnel. Minor power fluctuation detected. Technicians are investigating. Please continue normal activities." Jack and Lily exchanged looks. The announcement sounded routine, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. Whatever was happening on Nexus Station was getting worse, not better. and nobody seemed willing to connect the dots. 3 days later, Nexus Station buzzed with activity. Delegates from 27 worlds had arrived for the annual Galactic Alliance Summit. Security was tight, and maintenance crews worked overtime to ensure everything functioned perfectly. Jack stood at his post in the grand reception hall, wearing his dress uniform. As part of the station's emergency team, he was required to attend. The massive room gleamed with decorations from all Alliance worlds. Floating lights shaped like sea creatures from the water world of Aquarius drifted near the ceiling. Crystal flowers from Velax sparkled on every table. Impressive, isn't it? Lily appeared beside him in her diplomatic uniform. Some of these delegates traveled for months to be here. Jack nodded. The station's never been this crowded. Are you still worried about those power issues? More than ever, Jack said quietly. The manual inspections found damage in 14 more panels, but the cause is still unknown, and the station's leadership doesn't want to alarm the delegates. Lily frowned. That's concerning. I talked to Krell this morning. He said the damage pattern resembles something feeding on energy, like the station has a parasite. Commander Zithlak approached them, his crystal body polished to a high shine for the occasion. Harper, Rodriguez, please maintain professional composure. Many of these delegates are evaluating humans' role in the Alliance. Yes, Commander, they both replied. Zithlak lowered his voice. Harper, I must admit your concerns about the power system have merit. After the reception, I wish to show you something in the older section of the station. Before Jack could respond, the station's administrator, a tall blue-skinned Alturian, called for attention. The room quieted as she welcomed the delegates and spoke about unity and cooperation. Jack scanned the crowd out of habit, looking for anything unusual. His gaze stopped on an air vent near the floor. Was it his imagination, or was the metal glowing slightly? He took a step toward it. Suddenly, the lights flickered throughout the hall. The administrator paused, then continued with a nervous laugh. It seems our station wishes to add some drama to our gathering. The delegates chuckled politely, but Jack moved closer to the vent. The metal was definitely warmer than it should be. He activated his communicator. Control room, this is Harper. We have an overheating vent in the reception hall. Section K. Acknowledged, a voice replied. Sensors showed normal temperature. The sensors are wrong, Jack insisted. I'm looking at it right now. The metal is hot and... A loud crack interrupted him as the vent cover burst outward. A stream of what looked like liquid fire poured onto the floor, but instead of spreading like normal fire, it gathered itself into a shape, something like a snake made of living flame. Screams erupted across the hall. Delegates rushed toward the exits. The flame creature grew larger, feeding on the energy from nearby power conduits. Then more vents burst open, releasing more fire creatures. Evacuation Protocol Alpha. Commander Zithlak's voice boomed through the chaos. All personnel to emergency stations, all delegates to escape pods. Jack watched in amazement as the flame creatures moved with purpose, not random like normal fire. They seemed to communicate with each other, coordinating their movements as they spread through the hall. The room's fire suppression system activated, releasing a chemical mist. The flames dimmed momentarily but then flared brighter, apparently feeding on the energy from the system itself. It's not working, Jack shouted to Zithlak. They're adapting. Zithlak's crystalline face showed genuine fear. This is impossible. These are fire eaters, ancient weapons created during the last Great War. They were all destroyed. Well, they're back now, Jack said, and we need a new plan. The station's alarms blared at full volume. Emergency doors began closing throughout the station, attempting to contain the spread of the creatures. Jack saw Lily helping delegates toward an exit. Diane's voice came over the emergency channel, coordinating security teams. Jack looked at the growing fire creatures. They were unlike any fire he had ever faced, but fire was still fire. It followed rules. It needed fuel. It created patterns. and understanding those patterns was what firefighters did best. Evacuation alarms blared throughout Nexus Station. In the command center, station leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. Holographic displays showed the fire creatures spreading through multiple sectors. "The fire eaters have already disabled 3 power junctions," reported the chief engineer, a tall insect-like being. "They're learning our systems faster than we can adapt. Evacuation is 40% complete," added another officer. "But the creatures are blocking access to some escape pod bays." Commander Zithlak stood rigid, his crystal body reflecting the red emergency lights. "We must follow protocol. Seal off the affected sectors and evacuate all personnel. The Alliance fleet will send recovery ships." "What about the station?" asked Diane Powell. "We're just going to abandon it." "The station can be rebuilt," Zithlak replied. "Lives cannot be replaced." Jack listened from the back of the room. He understood the logic, but something felt wrong about retreating without a fight. "Commander," Jack spoke up, "I think we can stop these things." All eyes turned to him. The station administrator, her blue skin pale with stress, looked skeptical. "Firefighter Harper, these are not ordinary fires. They are ancient weapons designed to consume energy and organic matter." "They're still fire," Jack insisted. "They follow patterns. I've been watching them. They move toward energy sources, avoid certain materials, and communicate with each other through pulses." Zithlak's crystal features shifted in what Jack now recognized as consideration. "What are you suggesting?" "Let me get closer to the central power distribution hub. That's where they're gathering. I think I can create a containment strategy based on their behavior." The room fell silent. Finally, the administrator spoke. "The evacuation will continue. All non-essential personnel must leave. But I will authorize a small team to attempt containment." Zithlak stepped forward. "I will lead this team." "With respect, Commander," Jack said, "I need to go alone." Shocked murmurs filled the room. Zithlak's body flickered with blue light, a sign of strong emotion. "That is against all protocols. It is suicide." "The Fire Eaters' target groups," Jack explained. "I've been watching the security feeds. They sense body heat and energy signatures. A team would just give them more targets. One person might slip through." "He's right," Krell said, entering the command center. The engineer's tentacles held a tablet displaying data. The creature's tracking ability increases with the number of energy sources. A single human might evade detection. The administrator looked troubled. "Even if you reach the hub, what can one person do?" Jack took a deep breath. "I have an idea. But I'll need remote support and access to the station's remaining systems." After tense discussion, the plan was approved. Jack would attempt to reach the central power hub while the evacuation continued. Lily would coordinate from the command center, using her diplomatic access to override security systems. Krell would provide technical support through the comm system, and Diane would monitor Jack's progress with the remaining security cameras. Jack prepared in the equipment room, gathering tools and protective gear. Zithlak approached him. "Harper, what you are attempting?" The commander paused. "It is either very brave or very foolish." Jack adjusted his oxygen mask. "On Earth, we have a saying. Sometimes running into a burning building is safer than standing outside watching it collapse." Zithlak's crystal face rearranged. "I do not understand human logic, but I respect your courage. The evacuation will be complete in 4 hours. That is all the time you have." Jack nodded. In the corridor outside, Lily waited to wish him luck. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "No one would blame you for getting on an escape pod." Jack checked his equipment one last time. "Back home, I never left anyone behind in a fire. I'm not starting now." With a final nod to his friends, Jack entered the service tunnel that would lead him deep into the burning heart of Nexus Station. Behind him, aliens and humans alike watched with a mixture of fear, doubt, and the smallest spark of hope. As the access door closed behind him, Jack switched on his helmet light and began moving forward. The tunnel was dark and already hot. In the distance, he could see an orange glow. The fire eaters were waiting. The service tunnel grew hotter as Jack moved deeper into the station. Sweat ran down his face inside his mask. His breathing was loud in the confined space. "Jack, can you hear me?" Lily's voice came through his earpiece. "Loud and clear," he replied, keeping his voice low. "The fire eaters are spreading through sectors 3 through 7, she reported, but they're most concentrated near the central power hub, just as you predicted." Jack paused at a junction. "Which way, Krell?" "Left tunnel," the engineer responded. "But be careful. My sensors show extreme heat ahead." Jack turned left, crawling on his hands and knees where the ceiling lowered. The metal was hot even through his gloves. 20 years of firefighting experience told him he was approaching a major blaze. "I need to know what I'm dealing with," Jack said. "Diane, can you get me visual on the hub?" "Working on it," Diane replied. After a moment, she added, "Sending to your display now." A small screen on Jack's wrist lit up, showing the power hub. The large chamber was filled with swirling, dancing flames that had taken various shapes. Some looked like snakes, others like birds or spinning wheels. They moved around the central power core, occasionally merging then separating again. "They're feeding on the main reactor," Jack observed, "but they're not destroying it. They're farming it, taking energy without killing the source." "Fascinating," Krell said. "They show collective intelligence." Jack reached a ventilation grate and peered through. He could see the hub about 30 meters below. The heat was intense, but his suit provided some protection. "I have an idea," Jack said. "These things behave like fire, but they're also like animals. They have patterns. Fire needs 3 things: heat, fuel, and oxygen. These creatures need energy, but they also seem to need each other. They communicate." "What are you thinking?" Lily asked. "If we can disrupt their communication and cut off their energy supply simultaneously, we might be able to contain them." Jack pulled out his tablet and began sketching a plan. "Krell, can you give me control of the hub's cooling systems?" "Yes, but what good will that do?" "The creatures feed on energy, not temperature." "Trust me," Jack said. "Lily, I need you to prepare the station's energy grid for a controlled shutdown sequence, sector by sector, but not all at once." "That's against all emergency protocols," Lily objected. "Exactly. These things have figured out our protocols. We need to be unpredictable." For the next 20 minutes, Jack explained his plan. It was risky and relied on his understanding of both fire behavior and the station's systems, but no one had a better idea. "I'm in position," Jack finally said, now at a maintenance hatch directly above the hub. "Start the sequence." Lily's voice was tense. "Beginning energy grid shutdown. Section 12. Jack watched as lights began to flicker in a distant part of the hub. Immediately, several of the fire creatures moved toward the fluctuation. "Now Section 8, Lily continued. More creatures moved, creating a pattern of movement. Jack carefully tracked their responses. "They're predictable," he said. "They always send the same number to check each disturbance." "Evacuation is at 90%, Diane reported. "You have 30 minutes before the last pods launch." "Plenty of time," Jack said with more confidence than he felt. "Now for the tricky part." He opened the hatch and began lowering himself on a cable into the intense heat of the hub. The fire creatures hadn't noticed him yet, distracted by the power fluctuations. Jack reached a control panel and quickly attached a device Krell had designed. It would allow him to manipulate the station's atmospheric controls locally. A sudden flare of light caught his attention. One of the fire creatures had spotted him. It rose up, taking a shape like a giant serpent made of flame. "Company's coming," Jack said calmly. "Time to test my theory." As the creature lunged toward him, Jack activated the first stage of his plan. Cooling jets designed for reactor emergencies sprayed a special compound into the air. The fire serpent hit the spray and shuddered, its flames dimming momentarily. "It's working," Jack said. "Begin Stage 2. The battle for Nexus Station had begun. The fire serpent recoiled from the cooling spray, but quickly recovered. It circled Jack, studying him with what seemed like curiosity. Other fire creatures began to notice the intruder. "They're coming your way, Jack," Diane warned through the comm. "At least 7 of them." Jack worked quickly at the control panel. "Krell, I'm implementing your atmospheric modification. Are you ready with the power cycling?" "Ready," Krell confirmed. "But this is highly experimental." "Story of my life," Jack muttered. He activated the second stage of his plan. Throughout the hub, atmospheric vents opened, changing the air composition. The fire creatures flickered and pulsed, their movements becoming sluggish. "It's affecting them," Jack reported. "The changed atmosphere is disrupting their energy patterns." Lily's voice came through. "Jack, the evacuation is at 95%. Commander Zithlak is asking for your status. Tell him it's working, but I need more time." Jack moved to a second control panel, keeping his eye on the fire creatures. They were communicating with each other, flashing in complex patterns. They were adapting. "They're learning," Jack said. "Start the power cycling now." Krell activated the sequence. Power throughout the station began shutting down and restarting in an unpredictable pattern. The fire creatures became confused, racing from one energy source to another. Jack seized the opportunity. He reached the main environmental control and began the final stage. A controlled release of fire-suppressant gas combined with an electromagnetic pulse designed by Krell to disrupt the creature's communication. The largest fire creature, the one shaped like a serpent, suddenly turned toward Jack. It had figured out who was behind the disruptions. It lunged, moving faster than Jack expected. Heat seared through Jack's protective suit. He fell back, crying out in pain. His arm was burned, and his oxygen supply was damaged. "Jack, what's happening?" Lily's voice was frantic. "I'm hit," Jack gasped, "but I'm still here." The fire serpent prepared for another attack. Jack looked around desperately. He was trapped between the creature and the reactor core. Then he saw it, a maintenance pipe carrying coolant to the reactor. It was his only chance. "Krell, what happens if the main coolant pipe to the reactor is ruptured?" "It would release supercooled liquid throughout the hub," Krell replied. "But the back pressure could damage the reactor containment." "Better than letting these things take over the station," Jack said grimly. With his good arm, Jack grabbed a tool from his belt and struck the pipe with all his strength. The metal cracked, then split. Supercooled liquid burst forth in a powerful spray. The effect was immediate. The fire serpent shrieked, a strange, electronic sound. As the coolant hit it, its flames dimmed and scattered. Throughout the hub, the other fire creatures reacted to their leader's distress, their forms wavering. "Now, Krell," Jack shouted. "Full electromagnetic pulse." Krell activated the pulse. A wave of energy swept through the hub. The fire creatures fragmented, their communication disrupted. At the same time, the atmospheric changes and power cycling reached their peak. The combined attack was too much for the fire creatures. One by one, they collapsed into formless energy that dissipated into the air. The fire serpent was the last to fall, fixing Jack with what seemed like a glare of hatred before it too dissolved. Jack slumped against the control panel, clutching his burned arm. "It's done," he said hoarsely. "They're gone." For a moment, the hub was silent except for the hiss of escaping coolant. Then the emergency systems began to respond to the damage, sealing the broken pipe and stabilizing the reactor. "Containment successful," Krell confirmed. Energy readings showed no trace of the fire eaters. "Jack, you did it." Lily's voice was filled with relief. "The evacuation has stopped. People are cheering in the command center." Jack smiled weakly. The pain in his arm was intense, but it was worth it. "Tell them to send a medical team. I think I'll need a lift out of here." As Jack waited for rescue, he looked around the damaged hub. It was hard to believe that just one person could make such a difference. But then, that's what firefighters did. They faced the flames when everyone else ran away. 6 months later, Nexus Station sparkled with new lights and repaired sections. The scars from the Fire Eater attack were almost gone, but the memory remained strong in the minds of all who had been there. Jack stood in the Grand Hall, the same room where the fire creatures had first appeared. His dress uniform was adorned with a new medal, the Alliance Star for exceptional courage. His arm, badly burned during the battle, had healed well thanks to advanced alien medicine, though he still carried a pattern of scars that the doctors had offered to remove. "I earned these," Jack had told them. "They remind me of what we faced together." Now the hall was filled again, but not with frightened delegates. This time, it hosted the graduation ceremony for the first class of the new Nexus Emergency Response Team, a mixed group of humans and aliens trained in Jack's methods. Commander Zithlak, still head of station security, approached Jack. The crystalline being had changed since the attack, his formerly rigid posture now more relaxed. "The cadets are ready, Instructor Harper," Zithlak said. "They have learned much from you." Jack smiled. After the incident, the Alliance had created a new position for him, teaching emergency response techniques that combined human adaptability with alien technology. "They're a good group," Jack replied. "Especially that young Valaxian, Kirzin. Reminds me of you, actually." Zithlak's crystal features shifted in what Jack now recognized as amusement. "I was never so flexible in my thinking." "You adapted when it mattered," Jack said sincerely. Krell slid across the floor on his tentacles, now wearing the insignia of Chief Engineer. "The new fire suppression systems are fully operational," he reported, "using your ideas about unpredictable response patterns." Lily joined them, her diplomatic uniform now bearing the rank of senior liaison. "The delegates are arriving for the ceremony. The Alturian High Council is particularly interested in meeting you, Jack." Jack nodded. "I'll be ready. But first, I want to check on the cadets." In a side room, 20 beings from 7 different species prepared for their graduation. They wore uniforms that combined elements from various worlds, practical like human designs, but enhanced with alien technology. Diane Powell, now Station Security Coordinator, was giving them a final briefing. She smiled as Jack entered. "Here's the man himself," she said. "The reason you're all here today." The cadets stood at attention. Jack felt uncomfortable with the admiration in their eyes. "At ease," he said. "Remember, what we do isn't about heroics. It's about understanding the problem, adapting to it, and working together. No single approach is always right." A young human woman named Kate Ellis raised her hand. "Sir, is it true that you faced the Fire Eaters alone because humans are braver than other species?" Jack shook his head firmly. "No, every species has courage. What happened taught us all something important. Different perspectives make us stronger. Humans can learn from Valaxian precision. Valaxians can learn from human instinct. Together, we're better than we are alone." The ceremony began, and Jack watched with pride as each cadet received their certification. The Alliance Administrator gave a speech about cooperation and shared knowledge. When it was Jack's turn to speak, he kept it simple. "Fire doesn't care what planet you're from," he said. "Neither do storms or floods or any other disaster. They just are. Our job is to face them together, using the best each of us has to offer." That evening, Jack stood at a viewport, looking out at the stars. Lily joined him. "Penny, for your thoughts?" she asked. "I was thinking about Portland," Jack replied. "About my old firehouse. I miss it sometimes." "Do you regret staying here?" Jack shook his head. "No, this is where I'm needed now." Below them, the new cadets celebrated their graduation. Humans laughed alongside aliens, sharing stories and forming bonds that crossed species lines. Jack smiled at the sight. When he had first arrived on Nexus Station, Jack had felt like an outsider, a primitive human in an advanced alien world. Now he understood that he had brought something valuable, not just courage, but a different way of looking at problems. Sometimes, the oldest methods were still the best. Face the fire, understand it, and never back down when others need your help.